Nicole here, and welcome to a very special back to school edition of Animal Kiddom featuring spiders, specifically the Chilean rose spider. Isn't she beautiful? So she is a tarantula, and tarantulas, there are hundreds of species of tarantulas, and her specific species is from South America, so specifically Chile, Argentina, Bolivia. But we have tarantulas here in Texas too. I'm sure some of you guys have seen them if you live here in Texas. We actually have the Texas brown tarantula, and I saw one in the wild at Pace Bend just a couple weeks ago, and it was also a really beautiful tarantula. So there's lots of them kind of all over the world, and they're just stunning species. So all spiders are arachnids, so anything that has 8 legs is part of the arachnid group. And those are all arthropods. So arthropods are what we call invertebrate species, and invertebrate just means they don't have a spine. And they have something called an exoskeleton. So an exoskeleton is a skeleton on the outside of the body rather than on the inside. So we as people have an endoskeleton where our bones are all on the inside of us, and they have an exoskeleton. So it's basically like a hard shell on the outside of them. And what happens is, because they still keep growing, so they're born as babies just like we are, they're very small and tiny. Because they're growing and they have this hard shell, they actually have to break through the exoskeleton shell, and it's a process called molting. And so they actually build a new exoskeleton that's bigger underneath the old one, and then the new one, once they first pop out, it's a bit softer, so they can take some big deep breaths, get a little bit bigger, and then some calcium carbonate is added to it to make it firmer, and then they're bigger. And then they have to keep going through that process over and over again until they reach full adult size, and then they may continue to molt about once a year to every 2 years. I'm going to try to move her around so you can see her a bit more. So her particular species lives in like desert scrubland, same with our Texas brown tarantulas, also in grassland, sometimes underground. They eat crickets, grasshoppers, cockroaches, mealworms, sometimes even small mammals and birds. They're very, very cool. And so in captivity, so her particular species, the Chilean rose tarantula, they are one of the most common species in the domestic pet trade. So they're one of the most common pet tarantulas because they're really quite docile and quite nice species. So what you can do if you feed them in the pet trade is you can feed them crickets, just like we talked about with reptiles. And it's really important, just like with reptiles, how we talked about gut loading the crickets, where you feed the crickets really healthy, a vegetarian diet, so you feed them healthy vegetables so they're gut loaded with proper nutrition before you feed them to the reptile. That's what you would do with these guys as well, so they get proper nutrition. And the other main thing I wanted to talk about them, because I know you're all wondering, is, aren't tarantulas venomous? Don't they bite? Can't they hurt you? And it is true, they are venomous, so certainly that is something where they can bite you. And usually with this species, it would just be a sting, almost like a bee sting or a wasp sting. But just like with bees and wasps, if you're allergic to her venom, which you probably wouldn't know until you were bitten, you can have an allergic reaction. And that can happen, some people have allergies to bee and wasp stings and some people don't. So it's the same with them. They also have these really cool hairs on the back of their abdomen. All these hairs right here are called urticating hairs. And if they feel threatened, what they can do is actually take their legs and fling them at the person that's threatening them. And the hairs can stick in our skin and they can cause a rash and make us feel really kind of uncomfortable. So that's one of their first defense mechanisms. Sometimes they'll also kind of rear up on their hind legs and wave around their front legs, including the Texas brown tarantula, and that can be a warning. So they are a type of species of spider that would prefer to not attack and be aggressive. They prefer to either run away or kind of use these other defense mechanisms first. Now that is definitely not true of all tarantulas, that's not true of all spiders. So, you know, it's always important if you're not familiar with the species you're around, if you find a species in the wild, don't pick it up, don't touch it, because you might not know what kind of tarantula it is, you might not know how dangerous the venom is, you might not know how scared it is or how aggressive it may act. So especially if you see animals in the wild, like we've always said, just be kind to them, be respectful, don't touch them, don't feed them, and just observe them from a distance and how beautiful they are from a distance. She is so lovely. I'm going to see if she's going to move over here to this hand. Now I know some of you may still be scared, but I hope not. I really encourage you, whenever we're afraid of something, it's important to learn about it. Because oftentimes, the more we understand about something, the more likely we are to respect it and appreciate it. I'll be the first to admit, when I was a little girl, I was afraid of spiders. And there was no reason for that. I think I just learned it from my friends, from TV, from who knows where. And so I saw a spider in my room and I called my dad and I said, "Dad, there's a spider in my room, come kill it." And he came and he sat down beside the spider and he held out his hand and it jumped into his hand. And he said, "Sweetheart, this is just a little jumping spider." He was like, "Look at how beautiful she is. You can see all of her eyes." And I said, "Oh my gosh, she is really beautiful." And I held up my hand and she jumped in my hand, and so I got to hold the jumping spider as well. And then he taught me that they're a type of species of spiders that jump to catch their prey. They don't make webs. And so he was teaching me about her, and that's also true for tarantulas. They also jump to catch their prey. They don't make webs. But he taught me that I had no reason to be afraid of her. And so I'm so thankful for my dad for that day to show me that there was no reason to be afraid of spiders, that they're really interesting and we just need to learn about them. And they can be so useful and help get rid of some pest species and other bugs that we don't really want in our house. So I'm very thankful that they exist. As we know, in Genesis 1, God created the heavens and the earth and all the animals in it, and he said, "It is good." So she is good. Even if you're scared of her, even if you think, "I don't think I could like a spider," God looks down on her and thinks she is beautiful. He's not going to look down on a species he created and think, "Oh, she's too fuzzy," or "her legs are weird," or "she's scary." He's going to see that she's beautiful because he made her and he made her species, and they have a role to play in their ecosystem and on this planet just like all of us. We're all here for a reason and we all have a part to play. And so does she. So she is very beautiful, and I hope that you guys can see that and that you've started to love spiders as much as I do. And what I might do is, just for one last cool little thing to show you guys, I'm gonna hand her over to my friend, Dr. Taryn. She's the one who owns this spider, and she's gonna flip her upside down, and I'm gonna show you her little fangs and her lungs, okay? And then we'll say goodbye for the week. All right. So hopefully you guys can see that. So her fangs are right there. See that? And then her lungs are right here and here, these little divots. And she's got these little spinnerets down here that can help make a web. So silk webs can come from that. Like I said, they don't catch their prey in their webs, but they can make little webs on the ground or to the door of their dens, more just for protection. And then she's got these beautiful segmented legs. Isn't she gorgeous? Aw, I might take her back. She's so beautiful. I love her. So I just want to challenge you guys, if there's any species you're afraid of, and it might not be her, you might be like me, you might love spiders, but say there's something you're afraid of, I challenge you to learn about it this week. Because like I said, once we learn about things, a lot of times we won't fear them as much and we'll learn to respect them. So for me, I'm afraid of scorpions, and apparently they live everywhere here in Texas. But my friend Bethany said, don't be afraid of scorpions, so I'm going to challenge myself to learn about them this week. And hopefully I'll learn to respect them and not be so afraid of them. And that is it. I hope you guys have a great week. Bye, everyone.